So today I just watched The Personal History of David Copperfield. So anyway, this movie, I didn't really know anything about going in. Other than it's based on David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, which I have not read. I do have it, so I should read it. And I'll try to get to that soon because I should read it, it's a classic. This movie was very funny. It was very enjoyable. It's one of those movies where it has a lot of charm, and when it doesn't necessarily have depth or interesting plot, it has charm to make up for it. Dev Patel is David Copperfield in this movie, obviously by Dev Patel playing David Copperfield. This is a movie that doesn't take into consideration ethnicity when it comes to casting, and overall that's fine. In this movie, it's definitely fine. I don't think that's a trend that needs to take on all of cinema, but for this movie it's fine, so I'm not going to complain about that any further. The whole cast did pretty well. I think Peter Capaldi was one of the standout actors in this movie. He was so enjoyable. Honestly, I think I liked him better in this than in Doctor Who. I was never a huge fan of his version of the Doctor, but I think he did really well. And Tilda Swinton did super great in this. Honestly, it's really fun to see her in movies. I haven't seen her in a lot, honestly. I really enjoy her work whenever I do. The basic premise of the movie is this kid who's very imaginative, named David Copperfield, lives with his mother. He gets a stepfather, then he gets sent away, and he goes from having nothing, and then he manages to make something of himself, but then he goes back to nothing, and it's a from rags to riches, back to rags again type story. And one thing that I really like when adaptations do is do something that's distinctively cinematic. Some adaptations will simply adapt this book to the screen, and they just write the script with the words that are in the book, and then they film it normally. Or they change a lot of stuff, regardless of changing stuff. And I can't speak to what this changes and what this leaves out and anything like that since I haven't read it, but one thing that I did like is that it would do stuff that only could be done in a movie or TV, but only could be done in film. Oftentimes when someone was talking about a past event, it would be projecting behind them as if there was a film projector showing it on the wall behind them as they were talking about it. And I really liked that. That's not something that would work in every movie, but I think it was utilized well in this movie, and I appreciated that because, that makes this a movie, and this has to be a movie. The only way to do that is to make this a movie. You can't have that in a book because that's a distinctively visual way of telling what happened in the story. So I greatly enjoyed that. A lot of times adaptations of books will do this, where there's a letter written, and then they just film the actor portraying the character who wrote the letter just sitting still. Dear Frederick Berg, I would like to inform you of my engagement to Mr. Percy Florgon. And I hate that. That's something that seems kind of newish, and I don't like it. It bothers me. It makes it boring. There's a reason voiceover for letters in cinema became the norm. It's just better. That's kind of a side note. This movie doesn't do that, so I don't know why I brought it up. Anyway, honestly, this movie has really good humor, and I laughed out loud several times in this movie, and I greatly enjoyed it. It's right at 2 hours long, which is perhaps a little long. I think if anything was cut, it would feel like something was missing. it's good that it has what it has in it, but it does get a little long and a little tiring in a few points, but it's necessary, and overall it's enjoyable and funny and very entertaining. There aren't really any plot points that I even want to talk about. This is a movie that I would suggest seeing in theaters, simply because I think movies should be experienced in theaters over in homes. But this is not a movie that I would say needs to be a theater movie. It's not like Tenet, or it's not like Tenet or any other Christopher Nolan movie for that matter, where it's made for cinemas. This movie is, fairly low budget. I believe it had like a $15 million budget. So I really do hope that it does end up making back its budget at the box office. I think it's currently at $11 million. So I do hope it does make some money at the box office. But yeah, it's definitely a movie I recommend watching. Honestly, did I have a problem with this movie? I said it was slightly tiring, boring at a few points. I do think that the relationship between David and Dora seemed weird. Like, it wasn't believable to me. Dora just didn't seem like the type of person David would be interested in. Like, after a few weeks with her, it seems like he wouldn't care that much about that relationship, just because she's very childish. She's very childish. I wouldn't say she's not smart, but because she actually does, in a few points, have insights into stuff, but they really just don't seem compatible, and it seems like he would see that, but she is pretty, so, I get it, David. I get it. It's slightly believable. This just could have been written in a more believable way, I think. That might be more of a critique of the book than the movie. I'm not sure how well it followed that aspect of the story. But, yeah. Overall, that was fun. Dora was actually a really fun character. I enjoyed her and her dog. I think that was fun. It was fun. Benedict Wong is actually in this movie, and he was someone I was not expecting to see in this movie at all. Partly because of ethnicity, but like I said earlier, this movie doesn't really take that into consideration of cast, as far as I can tell. He was hilarious in it. I think he's a great comedic actor. Overall, greatly enjoyed the movie. It's a really good movie. Definitely recommend checking it out. It's definitely a family film, so I do recommend watching it with the fam if you so desire. I think for the most part, everyone will like it in the fam. Might be boring for smaller kids, but who knows? Kids are weird. Anyway, catch you guys later. Peace. This is a movie written and directed by Armando Iannucci.